is television's favorite big family? The Brady Bunch? No way! It's the Louds from Nickelodeon smash hit, The Loud House. You all loved our first 107 Loud House facts, and with 11 siblings and a bunch of family and friends, there's plenty more where that came from. Hey, I'm Alyssa with Channel Frederator, and today we're buckling down with 107 more Loud House facts. Try your best to find a place on the couch, and let's get started. The creator of The Loud House, Chris Savino, grew up in Royal Oak, Michigan, a suburb of Detroit. Royal Woods, where Loud House takes place, is indeed based on Savino's real-life town, Royal Oak. The episode Driving Miss Hazy even confirms that Royal Woods is in the state of Michigan. However, a map shown in the episode Argue for Real places Royal Woods towards the center of the state, whereas Royal Oak is in southeast Michigan. Savino is a self-taught animator and illustrator. He never went to college. He learned to draw by redrawing comic strips by hand and immersing himself in animation books at his local library. Savino's first job in animation was, by an insane stroke of luck, on Ren and Stimpy. He got the job by mailing a letter and some art to the show's creator, John Kay, after he caught the pilot at a festival. He was 19 at the time. When Savino was pitching his ideas for the Nickelodeon Shorts program, Nick was already looking for a big family pitch. Even though Savino had two other ideas, the Nick execs didn't hesitate to snag the idea about the giant family of, then, rabbits. At first, the short itself was going to be about the boy rabbit trying to leave his house without bumping into all of his sisters, because the sisters were guaranteed to nag him about his outfit. Although Savino frequently experienced that scenario growing up, he realized that it wouldn't be relatable for people who didn't have siblings. So he landed on something everyone could relate to: struggling to reach the bathroom. Since he had really wanted to do a funny animal show, Savino was initially against the idea of making his big family human, but it only took him to walk to his desk to conclude that Nick exec Jenna Boyd had been right about changing the family from rabbits to humans. Though it seems obvious that Savino would draw on his childhood as one of 5 boys and 5 girls when writing a show about a big family, he claimed that the connection never even occurred to him while the family was still rabbits. The dots connected the moment his characters switched to humans. All Savino did to arrive at Lincoln's more or less final design was to erase the ears, triangle nose, and bunny tail off of his original rabbit protagonist, and give him pants. Pants are good. Back when the Louds were rabbits, all the characters were going to have B names instead of L names, simply because B was the only letter with 25 female-sounding names. Once the Louds became human, Savino converted to L because his own sisters, his wiener dog, and his mother-in-law's wiener dog all had L names, and they were all 4-letter names. And yes, all those names made it onto the show. Interestingly, the Louds that share names with Savino's actual siblings, Lori, Lisa, Lynn, Luna, and Lana, don't share their personalities in any way. Savino wasn't pulling for that aspect of his childhood, and instead focused on sculpting characters whose traits would directly contrast or conflict with Lincoln's. Despite the B epithet, Lincoln's rabbit name was going to be Warren. This was a play on words because a warren is an area where rabbits breed, or a structure where rabbits are kept or bred. When the L theme was established, Savino struggled to find a replacement name. Before landing on Lincoln, he had a long list of L names, including Louis, Leo, and Leon, none of which Savino felt fit his character. The show was always going to be called The Loud House, but initially Loud wasn't a surname. It was just a description of the volume of a home with 26 rabbit children. Loud became the family's last name when Savino enlisted the help of present-day Pinky Malinky executive producer Scott Kramer. As Kramer was preparing to read through the short, he emailed Savino, wanting to double-check his assumption that the family's last name was Loud. Savino immediately replied, "It is now." Why 11? Well, first of all, it was a biologically believable downgrade for a human from 26. Savino's own family had 10 children, but he wanted to firmly place Lincoln as the middle child, with 5 younger sisters and 5 older. Savino co-wrote both the opening and closing theme songs. More specifically, he wrote a ton of lyrics for the opening theme song, and the composers, Michelle Lewis and Doug Rockwell, peppered in some of their own and filled in the rest. Savino was eager to contribute because he considers the theme song to be an incredibly important part of any show. He has fond memories of growing up watching shows whose theme songs were a full minute long, and he loved how they set the tone of the show. In addition to helping write the opening theme, Doug Rockwell also composes a lot of the show's underscoring and additional episode music. He also wrote the theme song for Nickelodeon's Nicky, Ricky, Dicky, and Dawn. Michelle Lewis, on the other hand, is a time-tested songwriter and composer. She even wrote a radio hit for Cher called A Different Kind of Love Song in 2002. The Loud House is script-driven rather than storyboard-driven. While Savino was down for either, he was concerned that if the show was primarily written through storyboarding, it would be too easy to forget about including the family members who weren't the center of the story. Savino wanted every Loud to have their equal screen time and their equal say and equal existence. When an idea is pitched for a story, the first priority is always to hammer out the emotional through lines. The question Savino asked the most is it believable? You may be surprised that the innate humor of the story is almost entirely ignored at the initial pitch. But Savino is never worried about why any given pitch could be funny. He said, "The funny will always come." All of the writers in the room then collectively construct a 4-page outline before shipping it off to the individual writer to write the full script. Once the writer's first draft is finished, the script is then brought back to the room where everyone works together on the rewrite. Savino likes to leave a little room in the script so that the storyboard artist can embellish a scene if they see a good opportunity. He says the relationship between the script and the storyboard is sometimes akin to a choreographed dance. You must be thinking that they get to take their sweet sweet time, right? Not really. The story writing process starts over every week. Even though the writer's room has to churn out new stories crazy fast, the rest of the process takes some time. From start to finish, an episode of The Loud House takes about 10 months. This means that an episode is written about a full year before it finally airs. In other words, the crew was writing Relative Chaos before The Loud House even premiered. Since The Loud House's process runs miraculously smoothly, the only problem that tends to pop up during post-production is whether the episode is running, say, 15 seconds over time. While figuring out what to cut is usually incredibly difficult, Savino is thankful to have that problem in post instead of a plot hole big enough to drive a truck through. Because The Loud House has so many characters, Savino was initially planning to make the episodes a full sitcom length of 22 minutes, instead of dividing the half hour into two 11-minute episodes. However, even though he decided to go with 11 minutes, he fell in love with the sitcom idea of a midpoint between a commercial break, where the character gets what he or she was looking for and then has to deal with the consequences. These midpoints even have a set point in Loud House scripts. Since 11 minutes translates to 16 pages, the midpoint should more or less always be at the bottom of page 8. The other major advantage of using the midpoints is that it becomes easy to spot where a long script needs to be cut. While The Loud House normally follows an 11-minute format, there has been 2 episodes so far that exceed the full 22 minutes. 11 Louds a Leapin' and The Loudest Mission, Relative Chaos. Both are from season 2. 11 Louds a Leapin' was the series' first full-length episode and its Christmas special. That's the least of what makes it interesting. The special marked the very first time we ever see Mr. and Mrs. Loud's faces. Initially, fans were concerned that Rita and Lynn's face would immediately go back into hiding, but Savino assured a fan on Instagram that that wasn't the case. Other than a few episodes that happened in production before the Christmas special premiered, Mr. and Mrs. Loud's faces would be shown from here on out. The episode name itself is taken from a lyric from the song 12 Days of Christmas that says, 10 Lords a Leaping. Consider that Luann strives to come up with 12 puns of Christmas every year, it's rather fitting. Then again, basically every episode is a pun, so... The other full 22er, Relative Chaos, is incredibly notable as well. Bobby and Ronnie Ann move in with their extended family, and we meet their cousin, Carlos Jr. Carlos is the first character on the show with Down syndrome. The fact that The Loud House would be introducing a character with Down syndrome was big news long before the episode aired and was treated enthusiastically. To Savino, introducing a character with Down syndrome wasn't a big deal because the whole notion of having a character with a disability came up because we knew that it's not the disability that makes a character. In fact, he knew someone with Down syndrome growing up and wanted to make sure he was represented because he was there in our lives. Obviously, the episode marked a few other major changes. Savino thought it would be interesting to explore Lori and Bobby's relationship as a long-distance one, especially because nowadays, with smartphones and all, it's more common and feasible. Many fans were incredibly upset by the move because of what it would mean for Lincoln and Ronnie Ann, but Savino assures that Ronnie Ann will be in just as many episodes from here on out. Relative Chaos also foreshadows, not so subtly, that after graduating high school, Lori will move to the big city to attend college. Savino confirmed that anyone who is thinking this is onto something. There was one other episode in season 2 that had fans freaking out. In the episode L is for Love, we find out that Luna is interested in women, specifically a very cool-looking girl with blue hair named Sam. If Clyde's parents are Nickelodeon's first same-sex couple, Luna is the network's first openly bisexual protagonist. Actually, saying that she's bisexual is both correct and incorrect. Savino said that Luna is a free spirit, and his goal was to avoid labels altogether. The writer of the episode advised to let the people who want to label her, because they've not had this before. So basically, Savino concludes, whatever you think she is, she is. Like Clyde's dad's, the reception of Luna's sexuality was exciting for what a non-issue it was. Savino believes a character's sexuality is way less important than their attitude and personality. Savino brings this same attitude to gender as well. When he was constructing the Loud family, he said it was less about boys versus girls and more about character traits versus character traits. So, will we see more of Sam? At Comic-Con 2017, Savino said that when deciding who gets a relationship in the show, it was really just Bobby and Lori, but the fan response was so overwhelming that Savino assures fans that Sam and Luna will be hanging out sometime soon. The Loud House is often applauded for its quiet yet profound integration of progressive social politics, like Clyde having 2 dads. Savino says that these characters are always created with the story in mind, rather than to serve as an independent social commentary. I hope he's enjoying his humble pie. Obviously, good work doesn't go unnoticed. The Loud House was recognized at the 2017 GLAAD Media Awards, which stands for Gay and Lesbian Alliance Against Defamation. It was one of 2 cartoons honored that year, the other being, of course, Steven Universe. Savino, in typical humble fashion, remarked, "Hopefully in the future, this is something that won't need an award." One of the many reasons that the show feels so relatable and grounded is that Savino and the writers often approach the task of coming up with storylines with the simple prompt of, "This happened to me as a kid." The writers also take great care to dig deep and find those experiences and themes that speak to both those with 10 siblings and those with none. This isn't the only way Savino has kept in mind those with smaller families while fleshing out the show. Initially, instead of his fourth wall breaking asides, Lincoln was going to teach the audience how to survive in a big family. But Savino quickly realized that many viewers would only have a few siblings, or none at all. So instead he had Lincoln invite the viewer into his daily life. For a show that started out as rabbits, Savino now focuses on the Loud's humanity as a key aspect. He said, "I hope that it would be the right time for a show that was more real in the sense that the kids on the screen deal with issues that kids at home watching are dealing with. While most cartoons are an escape, he hopes the Loud House is more of a mirror." Even though Lincoln is the center of the show, the fact that they have 11 different points of view available, plus Clyde of course, offers a lot of opportunities. The crew is still discovering they can tell stories from every point of view. For Braus About to Rock is one of Savino's favorite episodes. He views it as a real turning point in the show, where the team started feeling comfortable letting Lincoln hang back so one of his sisters can take the spotlight for an episode. From there on, the show started digging deeper into each of the sisters' individual personalities. The writers were initially nervous about departing from Lincoln. They were concerned with whether they were getting rid of their main character. However, there's been a few episodes now where Lincoln doesn't even make an appearance, and they've been well received. It's clear that the writers are slowly becoming more comfortable focusing on the sisters. In fact, Savino says that going into season 3, the show is evolving from a show about a boy with a large family to simply a show about a big family. So how did the writers decide which siblings get the spotlight? One exercise they are becoming fond of is pulling 2 or 3 names out of a hat. Whoever they pull, they have to write a script centering around that character. So far, Lincoln has had 3 voice actors: Shawn Fox for the pilot short, Grant Palmer for the first 22 half hours, and Colin Dean from then on. The switch happened because of puberty, which tends to make teen voices deeper, in case you didn't know. A quick glance at Colin Dean's credits will make you realize you've definitely encountered him before. For instance, he played Gregory on Over the Garden Wall and Tiffany on Adventure Time. So yes, Lincoln Loud is the same guy who shouts, "Tiffany!" Lincoln's greatest hidden talent is being able to remove his underwear without using his hands. Good for you, Lincoln. Colin Dean isn't the only member of the Loud House cast with a notable Adventure Time credit. Jessica DeSico, who plays Lynn, is also Flame Princess. When she was a little kid, she also had a cameo in The Godfather Part 3. It may surprise you to learn that the voice of Lori Loud, Catherine Tabor, is deep into the Star Wars world. She played Padme Amidala in Star Wars The Clone Wars. She also set to portray Princess Leia in the upcoming Star Wars Detours cartoon, and even had a live-action appearance in The Force Awakens as a hangar officer. Although she's never tried it, Lori's favorite food is sushi. At least she's open-minded. Lana, Lola, and Lily are all voiced by the same person, Grey Griffin. Seasoned animation fans may better recognize her as Grey Delisle, as she's been in tons of things, including Mandy in The Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy, Frankie in Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends, the High Priestess in Samurai Jack, Queen Butterfly in Star vs. the Forces of Evil, and the list goes on. It's a long list. According to Lincoln, the Louds have gotten all of their pets the same way. Lana found them and cried until they got to keep them. Lenny is played by Liliana Mumi, who all you Goodly Frederator fans may well recognize as Beth from Bravest Warriors and Panini from Chowder. As a little kid, she also had live-action roles in The Santa Claus 2 and Cheaper by the Dozen films. Lenny was never known as the brightest Loud. For example, she thinks that there are 40 states in the US. Luna is played by Nika Futterman, who was also in Star Wars The Clone Wars as Asajj Ventress. She also played Oil Can in the Box Trolls and Chum Chum in Fanboy and Chum Chum. We know parents aren't supposed to play favorites, but Savino recently admitted that Luna is his favorite character on the show. Luna's guitar is conspicuously missing a brand name. Even fans can't decide what guitar it is. It looks kind of like a Gibson Firebird, kind of like an Epiphone Explorer, but it's neither of those. Its X-like shape could also be a visual pun on the infamous Flying V guitar. What do you think? Maybe it was just drawn to look cool. On the other hand, Luna plays a Starrett amp, which isn't a real-life amplifier you can go out and buy. Instead, it's named after cartoonist Cliff Starrett, who Cliff the Cat is also named for. Starrett was known for the strip Polly and Her Pals, and its influences show up in more places than just Luna's amp and the family cat. Savino said the backgrounds of the show borrow heavily from the little details of that strip. It also influenced the show's color choices. On the Nick Animation podcast, the sisters' voice actresses were asked to name their characters' favorite movies. Lucy's was Edward Scissorhands, Lynn's was Jerry Maguire, Lenny's was Legally Blonde, Lana's was The Fast and the Furious, Luna's was The School of Rock and Spinal Tap, and Lori's was Dirty Dancing. It reminded her of her relationship with Bobby. All that sister chemistry isn't just fabricated for the screen. The actresses who play the sisters remark that they have a sisterly friendship and act like one big family in real life as well. Mrs. Loud is played by Jill Talley, who plays another popular cartoon spouse, Karen, Plankton's, beloved computer wife. Savino and Brian Stepanek, who plays Mr. Loud, have worked together before, and with Stepanek playing the main character's father in the other project too. He played Harold Patowski on Kick Patowski, which Savino directed. Lynn Loud Sr. enjoys naming his signature dishes after himself, with the help of cheesy puns. His favorite dishes are his Linzania, Linguine, and Lintil Soup. Clyde's dads, Howard and Harold, are portrayed by comedians Michael McDonald and Wayne Brady. 90s viewers might recognize McDonald from Mad TV, and everyone will probably recognize Brady from Whose Line Is It Anyway and Let's Make a Deal. John DiMaggio plays the Loud's neighbor, Mr. Grouse. DiMaggio is literally in everything. Literally. Brief credits include Jake on Adventure Time, Bender on Futurama, and Manly Dan on Gravity Falls. As with many aspects of the show, Mr. Grouse has a classic comic book feel about him. For his design, Savino mixed the design aesthetic of E.C. Sager's Popeye with a splash of the influence of good old Cliff Starrett. The Loud children's grandfather, Pop Pop, is played by Fred Willard, who's kind of just that guy you see everywhere. Lately, he's seen as Frank Dunphy in Modern Family, and he was was also news director Ed Harkin in Anchorman. You may have noticed that the camera angles in the Loud House tend to be straight on. Savino's mantra on this matter is simple, simple, simple. Since animators are already working on 11 different characters in any given shot, Savino didn't want to throw any additional fancy camera angling to make them lose their minds. This ended up further reinforcing the show's comic strip look. Peanuts is obviously a huge influence on the Loud House, right down to how the show is written. Savino recognized early on that Peanuts characters are adults in kids' bodies, and wanted to give the kids on the Loud House the same kind of anatomy and ability to solve their own problems. Even the timing of the Loud House owes a lot to the Peanuts. Savino loves how the pace of the classic specials were slower and more purposeful, and he uses that idea to balance out the chaos of a house with 11 children. The Peanuts fan service gets even more hardcore. The engine sound of the family van was designed to replicate the engine of the rented car in Bon Voyage, Charlie Brown. Giving the Louds a big backyard was important to Savino. He had a comparatively big backyard as a kid and thought it was an essential part of growing up in a giant family. Because Savino and his siblings were outside in the backyard literally all day, every day, the area became known in his neighborhood as the Loud Yard. Coincidence? Savino never tunes into the Loud House broadcasts. The perfectionist said that when he watches the finished product, he only sees the things he wanted to do but didn't get to. Networks love a hit, so it's no wonder we've gotten just as much Loud House as we wanted. The show became the most popular kids animated show within only a month of its premiere. For Free Comic Book Day 2017, the Loud House published its first ever graphic novel, There Will Be Chaos. Savino refers to it as an extension of the series. It was written and drawn exclusively by writers and artists who work on the show. Since the show is so heavily influenced by comics, Savino found the transition from screen to panel to be quite natural. He was also thrilled to have the opportunity to tell little stories that weren't quite big enough to become episodes. There's plenty more where that came from too. The graphic novel sequel, aptly titled There Will Be More Chaos, is set to be released on November 21st, 2017. Unlike the first graphic novel, Savino wanted to give artists and writers from outside the series a shot at the sequel. He's excited to see how Fresh Blood interprets the show's writing. Nickelodeon announced as early as October 2016 that the Loud House was renewed for season 3. The season is 26 episodes long and premieres in fall 2017. So, what can we expect from season 3? More specials, of course. Nickelodeon specifically asked for more half-hour event episodes, so you can expect 3 or 4 in season 3. We here at Frederator are especially excited for one of these specials. While Savino didn't want to use the phrase rock opera, he confessed it has a lot of music in it. The music for the Almost Rock opera is being written by Michelle Lewis and Doug Rockwell, who, if you remember way back towards the beginning of the 107, wrote the Loud House theme song. Savino promises earworms abound. But wait, there's more! Nickelodeon's partner in crime, Paramount Pictures, has confirmed a theatrical release of a Loud House feature film on February 7th, 2020. Just 3 short years away! We can't wait! Even before the feature was announced, Savino voiced his enthusiasm for directing a feature, Loud House or otherwise. But don't worry, he said he hopes he can make the Loud House as long as Nick will let me. One of the biggest challenges while brainstorming the film has been finding a story epic enough to warrant a theatrical release. To me, 11 Kids is also epic, Savino said, so he's curious to see how that balance will play out. So are we. Savino also assured fans that the status quo will be upheld while the film is in production. As far as the quantity and quality of the show itself goes, there will be no ebb in the Loud House anytime soon. Thank goodness. Once again, I'm Alyssa, and thanks for watching 107 more facts about the Loud House. Who's your favorite Loud sibling? What do you want to see in season 3? Comment below and let us know. Don't forget to click the bell icon to become part of the notification squad. We have videos dropping every day, so make sure to subscribe, because Frederator loves you.